You're listening to KX93.5, Laguna's only FM station. This is The Hollywood Happening with Stacy Davies. And tonight I am so honored to have on my program an actress who is beloved by millions and who really has such a unique personality and charm. I would call it charisma, that for many of us, she has always felt like a relative, like someone who we've actually never met, but who we seem to know and who we certainly adore. And that's really not an easy feeling to create in millions of strangers, which means that there is something absolutely magical about Mariette Hartley. Welcome to the show.
Wow. Could you just repeat that introduction every day to me as I wake up?
I will call your answering machine and I will leave it on that. How's that?
That's great.
And you can do what you like. May I call you Mariette?
Please,
okay.
Please. May I call you Stacy?
Yes, you may.
Great. Thanks.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for making time to be on the show. I know you're really busy with lots of projects, and we're going to get to all of that. But I really love to take a trip down memory lane, so I hope that you'll indulge me with some of my favorite things that you've done in the past. And just referring to that intro, have you had a lot of people approach you during your career and say that they feel as if they know you, fans on the street?
You're right. Yes. And it's strange because people mostly seem to remember my voice.
Yes.
Which is kind of interesting. I don't think about that very often. But I've had very funny experiences with people who say they know me, they remember me. What was I in? And I've been in the business since I was 10. But I remember once in New York getting stuck on a street corner, just kind of naming everything that I had done because I felt beholden to do that. And each thing that I mentioned, they would say, no, we don't watch Westerns, or no, we don't watch Twilight Zone, or no, we don't see that. No. And I must spend at least a half an hour with this person. I'm so grateful now for the industry database of, on the computers now,
yes.
Because that's all I say. I say, look, this is not about an ego. But if you look under IMDb, you'll see maybe something of mine that you've seen, and then we can talk.
Do your homework. It's true, and also what's great is so much of your stuff now is on YouTube.
Oh yes, of course, and also the Me channel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very big on Me. I think that's one, and it's so funny because my husband has not seen half of what I've done. And last night, for some reason, we have my name in. We have his name in too. We have my name in. And it's astonishing, the shows that have been on. And actually last night on the Turner Classic Movies, which I watch constantly, an old movie was on. Marooned was on last night.
Oh.
And God, I didn't realize I was so young.
I don't think I saw that one.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, to answer your question, yes, people do say, I know you. You really are someone I feel I know or maybe would like to know.
It's true, because every person who I know, when I told them that you were going to come on the show, they lit up like a Christmas tree, really.
Oh, for
and it was
heaven's sake.
Almost like I told them I'd found their long-lost cousin or aunt, and they'd say, I love her. And probably, if I said to them, well, what do you remember her from? They, of course, say your commercials,
Yeah.
And I'm sure each one would have the different show that you've been on, because you've been on everything. I think I have a list of your television shows, and I thought she has been on every single awesome television show that was made.
Lucky. So lucky, and particularly in the very, very beginning, because I came out here not knowing what the heck I was doing, except trying to survive, kind of.
Right.
And because I hated Hollywood, I loved theater. I came directly from theater to Hollywood, and thank God for John Houseman, who hired me to do work on it was called the UCLA Theater Group, which then, of course, became the Downtown Theater, the Mark Taper and all that. I had no agent. I had William Morris, but in New York. And for some reason, actually because of theater and because of this little theater in Westport, Connecticut, I rejoined a guy named Mike Gordon who had done Pillow Talk.
Oh.
And I had worked with his daughter in Little Women in this theater group. And he was the one that introduced me to Phil Kellogg, who was the great agent at William Morris here. And he was the one that then introduced me to Sam Peckinpah. And for me, the rest was history, you know.
And you got your film, Ride the High Country.
Yeah, and I should have stopped right then. You know, there was no better film that I've done.
No. We would have missed you. No, there's so many other wonderful things.
And other things people would not have been able to giggle about, right?
Right. Well, what I loved, you know, I read your book, Breaking the Silence, which you put out in 1990, and it was... Wow. I mean, what a read. I really am glad I've read a lot of memoirs, I have to tell you, because I do this,
sure.
you know, this is sort of my job, sort
of. Bless your heart.
And
yeah,
I've read a lot, and yours was so, again, it had that feeling like you were talking to me, and we were sitting together alone, you know, on a couch, and you were just telling me your life. And it was
in a very self-deprecating way,
yes,
which is pretty much my way.
Yes, you were hilarious. It's a hilarious book, and it's a heartbreaking. It went all over the place, but it wasn't, you know, chaotic or anything. But I really loved your sense of humor with it, and I really did laugh out loud many times.
I've heard that too.
Very dry wit, and self-deprecating in a very charming way. You know, you set it up perfectly, because the first few pages you have this conversation with God about Meryl Streep.
Yes.
And how I guess one day you were feeling pretty good about your career early on, and then you looked at the newsstand, and every 3 major magazines, right? Time and Life and everything had Meryl Streep on the cover, and it said the actress of the 80s, and you just you crashed.
And my husband, my then husband, was we had gone down to have like a wonderful kind of little sneak away honeymoon in Palm Springs, and we went to a 7-Eleven, you know, hoping to pick up a whole bunch of stuff for the little condominium or wherever it was we were staying, and I literally had a shopping cart. I was picking up coffee and things like that, and went past it and saw Time, Life. Well, there was one other. I mean, it wasn't Good Housekeeping or Ladies' Home Journal, and my cart came to a screeching halt, right? And I said, Time, Life. Oh, well, actress of the 80s. Well, there go the 80s, and
right.
You know, and I know every actress that I've spoken to about it. You know, from Sharon Gless to Marianne Plunkett to, I mean, some wonderful actresses. All remember exactly the day and where they were when those magazines came out. I mean, it creamed us all.
Yeah. I can imagine.
It just. And it's not necessarily that we're comparing ourselves, but it's like, well, how are we going to... we have to make a living here, too, so...
Yeah. Well, and it's not that you wanted Meryl Streep to, you know, fail, but I think
that would have been fine.
Maybe 1 or 2 trips, right? Maybe 1 or 2 little stumbles.
Well, I did it. I wrote that monologue for Annie and I, my best friend, who wrote the book with me. We are perfect. We were. She passed away this last year, but we were a perfect pair. And I had to do a fundraiser for my kids' school, for Justine and Sean's school, and we came up with, here a Streep, there a Streep, everywhere a Streep. And I tell you, the place was on the floor. It was wonderful.
Well, I love it because it's you talking to God and saying, okay, you know, I can deal with this, but what about, can I do these other things? And every time you mention a milestone or a role that you want to play, God says, no, she's going to do that, and her kids are going to marry the royals in England, and all of these things. And then it's funny when you get to the point where God lists that Meryl Streep's going to even play you in your life story. And you're like, that's got to stop.
That's it.
I can't
and
do
how?
it.
Why is that? And he says, because you're too tall.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't win. I actually had the review in my above my heart, and I pull it out. It's rotted and yellow, and it's the review of Charles Chaplin, who says, "Nothing that you know about acting quite prepares you for the amazing Meryl Streep."
Right.
And I'm reading this out loud to the audience and doing my own kind of facial comments.
Right.
That comes out.
You know what? I think that everyone can identify with that. I think that everybody, in their life, no matter what they do, there's somebody who makes you feel like you're just, you're what I call it the Salieri. Whenever I feel
absolutely.
like a loser, I'll just get real depressed and I'll tell the people I love, I'm Salieri. And most of them get it, right? Because Salieri was the second fiddle to Mozart. And never got the acclaim because he wasn't quite good enough. He was B level. And so that's when I'm depressed. And it's worse when you're in the entertainment business, because then the people who are doing well, you do see their picture. You do, they're all over. They're not just down the street or in your office or whatever. They're kind of plastered all over the place. And so I think that everyone can get it, but it's especially hard when it smacks you right in the face like that. I love that you make light of it, and you're very good at poking fun at yourself. I, again, pretty much fell off the couch when you were talking about your jungle film, Drums in Africa.
Yeah. It's a
terrible movie. I've never seen it, but I want to see it now.
Oh, it's on.
Is
it?
On.
That was the other thing the TiVo thing brought up. I mean, it's terrifying. You can't hide from anything now.
It's great, though, because you know what's wonderful about that? And just for the listening audience, basically, Mariette talks about this film, which you made right after Ride the High Country that was a great movie. And then the next movie was not a very good film, where you said they used about 90% stock footage from a Deborah Carr jungle film, and you guys had 8 minutes of on-screen time.
Yes. And we had no idea what we were reacting to until we saw the movie. And then,
So you and Frankie Avalon are looking off being horrified, and you're really looking at an exit sign on the stage, and then they stick in a cougar or whatever.
Yeah.
Very funny. But, it's really too bad when people have some kind of funny things like that in their past, and they really take it seriously, and they don't want to talk about it. Like, apparently you cannot mention Mommy Dearest to Faye Dunaway, or she will take your head off.
Really?
Yeah, she doesn't want to own it. She doesn't want to talk about it. And that was a great campy movie,
Oh, yeah.
And she's done so many terrific things. You'd think, come on, it's just Mommy Dearest. But so it's nice that you can enjoy some of this stuff.
Oh, my God. Listen, a sense of humor is my spiritual base. There is no question that without that, there would be no bouncing back.
Yeah.
The Drums of Africa came because I wasn't allowed to do Come Fly With Me, which is how I met Mother Dolores Hart.
I know.
And was supposed to do that movie, and it was devastating because I was kind of condemned by MGM as having hepatitis, which was not true, and they had to get rid of my contract, and that was the way they did it. I mean, it was.
That's really creepy.
It was, and of course the Dr. Wolfan, I remember was his name, and he took his own life. A month after that? So there was obviously something crazy going on, and it was a very scary time for me, and that's why this all goes back to I've done just about everything, and I was so lucky that in that time there was great television.
Yeah.
Great television.
It's the best television.
What?
It's the best television. It really,
oh, my God.
Really
I mean, Ben Casey, Dr. Kildare, and the amazing people that were on them, and the voices, and I'm in heaven. The anthology-style shows that certainly I was able to be a part of. I did, 4 Bonanzas and 4 Gunsmokes, and did one of the best Twilight Zones ever.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
And, the Star Treks and all of the original Star Treks, and I was so lucky. I think I knew it at the time, but probably not as much as I know it now. I mean, it was like a repertory company of television for me.
Yeah, when I was looking at your IMDb, because I had seen you, I grew up with you. I mean, you were there all the time in the 80s. That's when my childhood and my teens occurred. And so you were, I grew up with you, and I remember when my mother told me, "Oh, Mariette Hartley's in a new show called Goodnight Beantown," and we were so excited. And I'm 14,
Oh
and we
my
just
gosh.
couldn't wait to see your new thing, because we again all loved you. But I want to talk about Twilight Zone first, because you really were in one of the favorite Twilight Zones called The Long Morrow.
Yes.
And that's the one. This is in 1964. You play Sandra Horn, and it's the one where the astronaut is going to go on the 40-year-long mission to the other planet. And you guys meet right before he takes off, and it's instant love. And he's going to be in hibernation, so when he comes back, he'll be the same age, and you're going to be 40 years older. And of course, I don't think I'm spoiling it for anyone. You decide to go into hibernation while he's gone, which we don't know yet. And then we see you, and you're still, 22, 23 years old, and he returns and had voluntarily taken himself out of hibernation, so he's an old man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a turn on the O. Henry story, the watch and the gift of the Magi, where she cuts her hair off and sells her hair so that she can buy the watch chain for her husband's watch, and he sells the watch, right?
Right.
For a comb, a beautiful comb
hair
for her
comb.
hair. It's gorgeous. It's just a gorgeous piece.
It's so sad. I watched it actually again the other night, and because they have it on YouTube and everything, and I just get misty every time. It's so tragic. How did you feel about getting that part? Did you realize? I'm trying to think. That was season 5, so Twilight Zone was popular.
Well, it was a fascinating story. First of all, take you back to my high school, because I was in, I went to high school in a very creative community, Westport, Connecticut. And it was a community of all of the advertising men and all that. Of course, my father was in advertising. But I was the president of the drama club at Staples High School, and I had just seen the amazing, it was a Playhouse 90 that, it was one about the prize fighter. And Jack Palance was in this one. Anyway, it's famous.
Okay.
I'll come up with it later.
Okay.
Anyway, and I read, at the ripe old age of 14, that it had been written by Rod Serling.
Uh-huh.
So I thought, oh my God, wouldn't it be wonderful to have him come to my drama department and speak?
Mm-hmm.
I called him at his home. I don't dare do those kind of things now while I'm not working. And I spoke to him, and I said, Mr. Serling, yes, and he's so dashing and so debonair. Talk about
Oh
charisma. Anyway, he spoke to my drama class. It was phenomenal, just phenomenal. Okay, cut. I'm now walking out of the gate at Metro, having, I think, done Ride the High Country. I was just walking to my car, and this limousine comes pulling up, and the window goes down, and this handsome man looks out, and I went, oh my God, Mr. Serling. He said, yes. I said, well, oh gosh, my name is Mariette Hartley, and you won't remember me, but I asked you to speak. And going through the whole thing.
Right.
And he said, oh my heavens, yes, I remember that. And I said, well, I'm here now, I'm looking for work. 2 months later, I was doing the Twilight Zone.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if he wrote it for me, but he certainly remembered, and oh, God, I would just always love that man.
Yeah, that is amazing. It really is one of the most beautiful Twilight Zones.
Yeah.
It sticks with you. It's one of those.
Yeah.
Pulls at your heartstrings.
Right.
Yeah, and you really had a nice little run in the sci-fi stuff. One of your other really famous roles, of course, is on the original Star Trek a few years later as Zarabeth in All Our Yesterdays. And I hadn't seen that since I watched the rerun, I think, with my dad a long time ago. So I watched it last night again, and it's great. And it's so sad
stunning.
Again. What is it with you?
Well, I was so lucky. I got these terrific scripts and a wonderful director, and I felt so at home with those guys. It was the same thing that would happen to me in Gunsmoke. They took me under their wings, and a lot of it was because I had not done a lot of film. and they were, for the most part, pretty terrific, especially Leonard and the Doc.
Uh-huh.
Bill was kind of in his own world. What?
DeForest Kelley.
Oh, he was such an angel, and of course he slept through that one, right?
Oh, I think you're the only one who ever got Spock in bed.
Oh yeah, I taught him how to eat meat. Before he met me, he was a vegetarian, right?
That's right. See what you did?
But anyway, it was pretty thrilling, and I knew even at the time that it was a pretty special show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish that she'd go and get into one of the movies. Wouldn't that be fun to have Sarah Beth return?
I think so.
Yeah.
The only thing that always gets my dander up is when they recast, and you love the original person, so unless you're going to do it again, I don't know, because they're going to stick some. Oh yeah. We don't cast
Meryl
the same.
Streep, yeah.
We don't cast the same way we used to cast, right? I don't know. Don't get me started on acting chops and
thank you.
Earning, because you're irreplaceable.
I wish you'd seen the last play that I did, which was so exciting, and oh God, it was heaven. I wish I'd known you. I would have absolutely invited you to come on up and see it. It was a two-hander. I mean, a lot of people think that if you do television or movies or whatever, that you can't really, that you don't have the chops.
Right.
And because I started in the theater, and I love the theater, and it's just my first love. But I did a two-hander called the Marini Strad, which was, I was on stage for an hour and a half, and with this young man who was delightful, and it's a wonderful new play. So
I have to tell you, when we first confirmed that you were going to come on the show, of course I immediately went to your website and I saw Mariette Hartley in a new play, and I thought, I am so excited, I can't wait to see this. And it ended at the end of last year.
Yeah.
And I'm very upset, so maybe you can do it again just for
me. I hope so. I really do, because I loved it. It's a very important piece, and it hit me at exactly the right time.
And you play a violinist.
A virtuoso violinist who a true story, who died in virtual anonymity.
Wow.
And so I was committed to bringing her to life,
Yeah. You look gorgeous in the picture that they took of you.
Thank
so
you.
Elegant and beautiful.
Glorious.
Backstage gave you the best review. Just
terrific.
I
was, again, so fortunate. And, they followed me a little bit because Will, what's his name? He's a sweetheart of a guy. He had seen my one-woman show, and I just reread that review, and it said, as much as I like Mariette, I was just about to give her a bad review, right? And he said, and then the rest of the show happened, because I had written it too, and it was based on my autobiography, and then it took off, and it was an interesting show. I played 11 people.
Wow.
I played my whole family.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's therapy.
It was, except I've been through that so many times.
Yeah, it's old hat now, right? After reading your autobiography, yes, I think you've been through it. Definitely, you got it all figured out now.
Well, I don't know if you ever do, but at least I can now be in a wonderful, loving, intimate relationship, and that with a man,
yes.
Right? With a terrific, fabulous man, and that I feel very, very blessed about.
Oh, yeah. You're ahead of the game again, you have that. So now we've been talking about really amazing things you did. I hope you don't mind if I mention a couple of things you did that I love personally that probably you wouldn't want listed on your
really
your
okay.
Okay, so because of the time period I grew up in, we had the Midnight Movie, and they were always really scary, awful things.
No, The Return of Count Yorga?
Yes. Okay.
Now, my kids who aren't scared about anything, they are not scared about anything. They could not watch that.
You know what? I got nauseated when I watched it, and I'm 43, and so I'm watching the Return of Count Yorga from 1971. I rent it from Netflix.
Oh my God!
I'm watching it, and I start getting PTSD flashbacks of watching these things when I was too young to see them.
Really?
And yeah, so you're this of course, wholesome, angelic, beautiful young woman. This is your type, right?
Yeah.
And you're just virginal and sweet and innocent. And you're a teacher, right, for in-need children, for handicapped children,
Right.
I think.
Right.
And so then this Dracula guy moves into the mansion next door. And I don't know where you guys were. You were in California. Like, where were you? Santa Ana Winds. You mentioned the Santa Ana
we were
Winds.
in actually Montecito. We were, and it's a amazing old castle.
Yeah. And it's great. So I'm watching it and I'm like, ha ha. But there actually are some really funny moments. And I have to set this up.
I know. It basically starts as a comedy.
It really does.
He starts eating popcorn and watching an old movie of his, right?
Right.
Or something.
The vampire watches a Dracula film eating popcorn. That was funny. Yeah. No, I want to set this up for the listeners, though. I guffawed. I laughed out loud at this part. So you have, at this point in the film, been taken captive by the Dracula guy, Count Yorga, and he's murdered your whole family, but he's brainwashed you so you don't remember, and he's hypnotized you to tell you that you're just spending a nice, lovely weekend with him and he's your friend. So you wake up in the morning, it's almost like a Snow White thing with the birds are chirping, and it's so lovely outside, and you come to the balcony and you're, breathing in the air, and he has this terrible Igor kind of henchman who's walking around the castle with a dog, and you come down to the front steps of the house, and the guy is really a mutilated looking man.
Oh, it's horrible.
Right? And he has this dog that is going insane. It's like it has rabies. It's like snarling and barking like it would rip your face off, and it's going crazy. And then there's a pause, and you look at them and you go, hello. And I screamed laughing. It was the perfect comedic timing. It's going to kill you. And you're like, hello.
Hello, fellow.
So wonderful. And I was fine. And Craig T. Nelson is in it. And he had some funny moments. He and the other guy running from
Rudy DeLuca.
Yeah, running from the lady vampires. And they go, whoa, and go the other direction. And
I know. It's like an old Marx Brothers.
It was really a good time until towards the end when it got super gruesome. And it has that awful twist that I hate that they always put in the 70s film, where the good person does have to lose the game.
Yeah.
And I actually did have sort of some very nightmarish dreams for a couple days.
Yeah, that was Roger Perry, right? He becomes a vampire.
And we don't know it.
Okay, yeah.
I know.
But I think my kids got really scared when the hands started coming up from the earth.
Oh, that was terrifying.
Yeah. They couldn't watch that.
Yeah.
They just couldn't. And these are kids that can do they can take any ride.
Right.
They can see any scary movie. They love it. And I guess with their mom in, oh, listen, my poor son. I mean, kids of parents that have to work and take anything.
Right.
I remember it was in Logan's Run. I don't know if you remember that show.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I played a robot who was in love with Donald Moffat. And at one point I get shot, and in the days I had a beautiful dress on. I really looked pretty. People send me pictures of that sometimes. And as I'm shot, I fall, and it's like from like a spring comes out of my chest.
Had the doing, yoing.
Yeah, that is that kind of feel. Right. I think my son was 4 when he saw that, 3 or 4, and he went crazy.
Oh, yeah.
He just went crazy. Somebody had to call. I wasn't there at the time. I had to call and say, honey, I'm alive. I'm here. I'm talking on the phone with you. Everything's okay. It's hard. I mean, yeah, there were moments when, I remember. I was doing a film that I called Chopper Pussies, which was called Jackie's Girls. It was Jackie Cochran and all of these gals that were running the Sikorsky helicopters. And I died on the 34th page. It was just an awful show. And so I took it only because I died on the 34th page. Well, my son was watching it, and of course he saw me get in the plane and the plane blow up.
Right.
It didn't even occur to me. All I could think of was, oh, thank God I died on the 34th page so I can do this. Oh.
Right. Well, you have to make a living.
Yeah, you got to make a living.
You got to make a living. You can't watch the kids all the time.
But I used to take them on the set with me all the time.
Oh, well, that's good.
Oh, God, yes. I mean, Justine, that's how The Incredible Hulk happened.
Uh-huh.
Because I wasn't going to do it.
Oh, I'm so glad you did it.
Oh, my God, me too. Jeez.
You won the Emmy for that.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, who does that? You go to bed with Bill Bixby and wake up with Lou Ferrigno and get an Emmy. I mean, in this business, it is so insane. And then the parts that you really cared about, although I loved doing that one. To me, The Incredible Hulk was a really, really underrated show.
Mm-hmm.
Direction-wise, writing-wise, it was shot beautifully. And I loved it. I just loved it. It's a classic piece, and I love Bill. I mean, It was thanks to Bill that I worked for those full 2 or 3 years with Goodnight Beantown and the Hulk, and we just adored each other.
That's so nice to hear. He's always been just one of my favorite actors, and I loved The Incredible Hulk. And that opening song, the theme song to it, it's so melancholic and beautiful.
Yes.
And you married him, and you married him knowing he was the Hulk.
And he married me knowing that I was potentially going to die.
Right, and you did again.
Yeah, I know. Well, listen, when you're on these shows, and they're series, and they have a leading man, you either have to die or be sent up to San Francisco. You know, I mean, it happened with every one of the Bonanza boys, because I went through the entire family. That was one of my favorite moments in the book when we found the letter
that
was sent to David Dortort.
So this was a fan letter that Lauren Green received, right? That because you had played a character in the recent episode that you were going to marry his character, and then you ran off at the end. But the year before, you had played an Indian girl
who had been raped. He was a white woman who'd been raped by the Indians had this hideous child who they had to keep putting boot black on the hair because it wasn't an Indian child.
Oh my God.
And it kept running down. How could Ben have possibly gotten involved with that woman? I mean, didn't he recognize her as the Indian last year?
Right. Oh, I just want to remind our listeners that you are tuned in to The Hollywood Happening with Stacy Davies on KX93.5FM. And this evening, my guest is the absolutely hilarious, award-winning television and film star, Mariette Hartley. Now, I still think with The Incredible Hulk, they did that with, remember Lindsay Wagner was with Lee Majors, right, for the $6 Million Man. They killed her off. But then they gave her own show. So they just needed to make your character on the Hulk. You needed like another thing to do besides, have cancer or whatever it was that was wrong with your character.
Don't we all?
Yeah, right, exactly. A better choice. And then you could have run off and had your own show on that. But well, you were great in that, and you did win the Emmy, which is so cool. So that was the year when you did The Incredible Hulk. That was in 1978. And you also were in something else that I just rented the other night because I hadn't heard of it. So, of course, I'm doing my homework and I'm trying to find everything I can.
So the
things that I haven't seen, because I've seen most everything. And this wonderful, I don't know what you would call it now, a short subject, but it was on TV. It was written by this woman, a writer, director, producer. And it was the short, A Rainy Day.
A Rainy Day.
Yeah. That was beautiful. It really was beautiful. Let me set it up for everybody. You play an actress and you come home because your father has passed, and so you have to spend some time with your mother. And through flashbacks and talking with her in the present, you realize that she was very controlling in your youth, not in a mommy dearest abusive way in that regard, but just, you had to color inside the lines, and it turned you into this self-critical people pleaser as an adult. And you couldn't figure out as an adult why you were unhappy until you sort of went back and relived your childhood. And then you come to forgive your mother. And it's just a beautiful piece. You were so wonderful in it. And I think especially after reading your autobiography, I just thought, wow, how did you feel playing that part that has some similarities to your real life?
Oh, but that's the best. That's the best, because when you've had as much therapy as I've had, if you find something that can access that, and I was always able to do that to a degree until the real tragedy in my life happened. But before that, for example, when I did Ride the High Country, and there was the there was a wedding, I could access all of my terror of the man issue, and you know now why. I mean, I was married to a man at that point who was very violent,
right.
and so it just read all over my face. There was no way that I could hide that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it talk about PTSD, and I didn't know anything about PTSD in those days. But when I was put in that kind of a situation, it just called up everything for me. And to me, that's one of the most violent scenes that's ever been shown.
Right.
And it's just an awful scene. But then when you get something as kind of subtle, it was a little bit more subtle. But my mother was very much like that woman.
In a rainy day. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And
I'd almost wondered if the lady, I forget her name, Beth, I forget her last name, who wrote the piece, wrote it about you or knew something about you.
No, she wrote it about herself.
Okay. Yeah. It's just amazing, the similarities. And I think even while I was watching it, knowing what I then knew about you, I could think of other people I knew in my life who had a very similar upbringing. And I thought, wow, this is really pervasive, this kind of gap, being able to express, and have those loving connections.
Yeah, and how does coloring within the lines have anything to do with that?
I know.
I mean, you know my other history,
Right.
which is my mother's father, and
we should mention it just briefly that your grandfather, your maternal grandfather, was the psychologist. He created behaviorism, which is the idea that you should never hug or kiss your children, right?
Yeah, well, that's kind of what it became, but it originally was about conditioned reflexes. Is really, I mean, the original lab experiments, like with baby Albert, which I kind of kid about, but there was nothing to kid about with it. He was a young child who we're beginning to find out that he was probably already ill, so he was expendable. And John B. Watson, my grandfather, who was then the head of psychology at Johns Hopkins, the youngest head, trained this child to be afraid of these things that he had never even seen and had no fear of. And he did that by striking 2 lead pipes, right next to the child's ear at the moment of contact. So if there was a dog that the child was seeing, the child was 9 months old by that time, 6 to 9 months old. He saw a dog, and Big John would then condition the child to be afraid of the dog by striking the 2 pipes to his ear. And that would happen with the monkey, that happened with the fur coat, that happened with whatever.
You say in your book that somewhere there's a kid walking around afraid of Q-tips because,
no, there's a large man, yeah. Fortunately, baby Albert died soon after that. And he died never having been unconditioned. That was the tragedy of all of those kids, is that they never had closure with it. They never unconditioned them.
It seems like that model that became behaviorism, that sort of controlling and just didn't...
so that you could kind of control children.
Right.
And he experimented with all of his kids and in very brutal ways. And, his second son, who became a psychiatrist, took his own life. There was another, suicide in the family about 11 years later from one of my sweetest cousins in the world, who was the daughter of his third son. And then my mother was suicidal all of her life. So, and then her husband took his life. So it was pervasive. That terrible,
incredibly troubling.
I mean, I remember I had a wonderful therapist who said, because I was very afraid of dependency, needless to say. I mean, it was terrifying to me. My mother was terrified of it, so I got terrified of it. And he said to me, I don't know any young child that doesn't come up to me and ask to be hugged, that once I've finished hugging that child, doesn't then want to go off and chase butterflies. It's not that they want to cling forever and ever and ever. It's that they get filled, they get nurtured,
right?
Which is hopefully the way we raise children now.
Yeah.
I mean,
it certainly seems to be the way you raised yours. So
Well, I nursed my kids until they were 16 and 17, and until they got their driver's license. It wasn't like I was overcompensating or anything. It's
just You're so funny, and that's a good segue into really the thing that you did in your career that. I don't know, maybe at the time you kind of thought, what? This is my Oscar moment, but hopefully enjoyed it. Hopefully you are glad that you did the Polaroid commercials because, I mean, you made 250 Polaroid commercials over 6 years. That's a lot of commercials.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
I want to play two of them, the audio, so that I ripped it off of a YouTube thing, and I want everyone to read. We can't see you, but I picked the ones where you're the sassiest, so that we can get you and James Gardner relive a little bit of that for just a second. Let's play it, Mike.
This is Polaroid's new Time Zero One Step.
Pretty. Why is it black?
Oh, you'll know it's the Time Zero One Step. And here's the world's fastest developing color. You see it in seconds now, not minutes.
Look at that color. But why a Time Zero One Step?
It comes with a pack of Time Zero Supercolor film in this made-for-each-other pack.
Certainly are made for each other.
Just like coffee and cream.
Rolls and Royce.
Or me and you.
Try ham and cheese.
Try ham and cheese.
Ham and cheese.
Know what you're getting me for Christmas?
Yep.
Got a motor?
Yep.
Bucket seats?
No seats.
You stand up in it?
Nobody ever has.
Give me a hint.
Well, you press a button and it gives you a prize.
You got me a gumball machine.
It's a lot of fun for everybody. It's the simplest one in the world.
It's got a motor. You press a button. It's the simplest one in the world. You didn't.
It's one step.
But you get those free.
You didn't. God.
I love those commercials. Those are really, I mean, you have done so many wonderful things. Who knew that being that just dry, kind of sassy, but, but not too overly emotional about it. Just wonderful. People love those.
Oh, I learned so much about comedy doing those. The producers, writers from Doyle Dane were just so brilliant. Bob Gage and Jack Dillon. They based her on Jack's wife, who apparently was a bit of a tippler at parties, as most people were on the East Coast in those days.
Yeah.
And she would turn to Jack at one of these cocktail parties and say, "Jack," he'd say, "Yes, honey." "Is this the guy I'm supposed to like?" And he'd say, "Yes." "Well, I don't." and so I knew that, and I think I had met her, but I knew Jack, and I knew Bob, and loved them beyond anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, with Jimmy, whom I adored, and I just spoke to him the other day, and all the men that I worked with, it just made. But yeah, he is a very, very special man.
Right. What a wonderful thing. And they're all over YouTube. There are people who collect your commercials, and they have these big databases of all these Polaroid commercials, and people.
Really?
Oh yeah, and people write comments underneath. "Oh, I remember this one. Oh, I love this one." And then there are new people. They'll say, "Oh, I don't know who that is, but I love her too." And then they start and look for your other work. So we'll keep him away from Count Yorga, and we'll put him over to Ride the High Country. You did another thing about that time, a couple years after the Polaroid commercials. You were riding high, you were hot property, especially with those. You made a film in Canada that was one of my all-time favorite movies as a kid.
Oh, I loved that film.
Improper Channels.
Oh, I loved it. I just loved it.
I love that film.
I know, and that happened in a magical way, too. I wish something like that would happen again, especially with Alan, because I loved working with him, and we had such a terrific balance together. Mm-hmm. And, of course, he's now, talk about hot property, my God.
Right, so we'll tell everybody this is Improper Channels with Alan Arkin, and you play a married couple, but you were separated in the film because you have some, marital issues. Nothing serious. It's a comedy.
Yeah.
kind of based around technology a little bit, right?
A little,
Yeah.
yes.
And
yes,
it's a
no, a lot, certainly about computers.
about
I mean,
identity and how the government can kind of change your record and who you are. And there's a social worker who's going to take your children from him. And
Monica.
yeah,
Oh,
and
God, yes.
Monica.
Crazy.
Crazy Monica. And you were nominated for the Genie.
Yeah, and Annie Potts got it. Yeah.
Darn her. That's the Canadian Oscar. But I loved Improper Channel. So tell me about making that with Alan Arkin.
Oh, it was heaven. It was just heaven. I remember I was taking a bath one night with my daughter, probably, or my son, or something. It was one of them. And I got this phone call, and somebody said, "It's Alan Arkin." And I said, "Excuse me?" And I don't know if I had met him somewhere or what. But anyway, got on the phone. He said, "How would you like to do a movie and play my wife in Canada?" I said, "Oh, my God, of course. Geez, yes, of course. Tell me about it." He said, "I'll send you the script." And that was it. And I loved the script. I mean, it was very Tracy Hepburn kind of wonderful comedy, and which I love doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. So we went up. I went up with the family, and we found a little house. We had a great time, and the movie was so wonderful to shoot. Gee, Adam, of course, has now become a big director, producer.
Adam Arkin,
Yeah. There was another child, I think, that came up, and they all played instruments, and they would sit around in the hospital, because some of it was done in the hospital, and they'd play, and they'd sing, and they'd do everything, and so it was funny. I had, if I was going to get the Genie, I had a speech all written about how grateful I was for being serenaded in the hospital and everything. Then Alan got the Genie and never thanked me, never even mentioned my name, right?
Right.
And I didn't get it, so I couldn't mention anything. He called me, I have to say this, because he called me the next day and he said, "Oh my God, I realized that I didn't even," I said, "Yeah, I was going to mention the whole family." So I want you to feel really badly about that. And
rub it in.
But it was great, and we had there's just a great balance that I loved, and it's not that easy to find. It really isn't.
And then I watched the other night. You've been in my house about 2 weeks now. I know. You're lucky I like you so much. So I was watching O'Hara's Wife, and I hadn't seen that for 30 years. And
does that stand up?
Yes, that's what I want to tell you.
And with Jodie.
Yes, so
Jodie Foster.
You're Harriet O'Hara, and you're married to Ed Asner, and you have adult children, Jodie Foster, and can't remember the other guy's name. And you're really excited because you and Ed are going to go off on your first honeymoon. You know, he's a workaholic, so you finally got him to go traveling. You're going to go to Italy. And then you have like an aneurysm the night you're packing. And I have to say, that was really touching. I mean, the hospital scene did not last very long. But when Ed Asner's character with his brother, played by Tom Bosley, and the children, and they're all in the doctor's office, and they're talking about end-of-life decisions. I thought, this is really forward-thinking because your character's brain dead. The doctor's explaining we're just keeping her body alive, and the longer you wait, the harder it's going to be. And I thought, this is really intense.
Wow.
This is in 1982. This isn't something we talked about a lot. And I teared up. It's very touching and very sad. And then
she comes
Then
back.
you come back as a ghost, and it's hilarity from from that moment on.
Oh.
It's so funny. The little asides and the little looks that you give him and he gives you. I mean, that's where all of the heart of that movie, it really is.
Well, again, we were looking at the list of the things that had been TiVo'd, and that was one of them. And I turned to Jerry and I said, "You haven't seen that one, have you?" And he said, "No." I said, "Okay, now that I know it holds up, we'll see that."
Please watch it. And it's so you're really good at comedy. I mean, you just have this natural, whatever you think people taught you. I don't know, but you definitely have this natural ability to.
Well, the one thing that I know about comedy, and my daughter and I were talking about it, is you cannot wink at the camera.
No.
You just can't.
Right.
And there are too many, even very famous good actresses who continue to let you know that they're doing comedy, and it drives me nuts.
Right.
But when you do it, hopefully, as effortlessly as I have always tried to do it, you don't get a lot of credit for it. I think that's what happens.
We could do a whole other show with me drawing parallels between you and Doris Day, from what was expected of both of you, what your exteriors were to the public, what your private lives were actually like, and unbeknownst to everyone. And she too. I mean, I don't know that you haven't gotten the credit, for being funny. I mean, maybe you haven't, because you're really a good comedian. And that same thing happened to Doris Day. It looked so effortless and real that people thought she wasn't acting. And that's the best acting. And that's how you are. I mean, it's like, that's why everyone thinks we feel that we know you, and it's you, because it's just, you're just amazing. I
thanks.
just say?
No, I think people sometimes know me more for my kind of dramatic things.
We did a lot of that, yes.
Yeah, so they don't realize. And, I was doing things when they were doing, meaningful movies of the week. And
you had those, too.
Yeah,
yes.
One of them in particular, completely changed my life.
Mad Mothers Against...
No, not Mad, although that was one of them. That was definitely one of them. No, Silence of the Heart. And that's the one that got me, deeply involved with suicide prevention and stuff
right,
like
about
that.
the son
Yeah. But...
yeah, you did some very serious things. Silence of the Heart, surrounding the suicide of a son. You portrayed the founder, Candy Leitner, of MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and you got an Emmy nomination for that.
And for Silence,
Yes. And then you made one that no one talks about too much, but it had a huge impact on me. I had never seen anything like this on television, and that was My Two Loves with Lynn Redgrave.
Yeah, Jerry and I were talking about that with Lynn, because people will say, well, you've kissed a lot of people. Who was your favorite kisser? And I'd say Lynn Redgrave. I mean, she was just fabulous. Of course, they didn't show that kiss. Yeah, with Seda Thompson.
So your character is a widowed woman who is going through a time of change in her life, and she is dating a man who has been a family friend for quite a while. And then you meet Lynn Redgrave. She's your boss, and you start having an affair with her. So it's kind of about bisexuality. Lynn Redgrave's character is a lesbian. I mean, I remember watching this going, this is amazing. And I was waiting to see you girls kiss. And I think she just washed your hair.
Yes, that's right.
It was very sensual, but...
Yes. Yeah, no, we did. We did. Actually, my mother, Seda, comes in and sees us kissing, and they had actually shot that, and then they cut it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was too much for everybody.
But my mother and I had the great conversation about that piece. I mean, I loved my mother, because... we thought that she was very forward-thinking, because one of the things that was allowed to be talked about in our family was, John B. Watson, was sex. You could always talk about that. You couldn't talk about touching or loving or holding or being intimate, but you could talk about sex. And Mom said, where was she? She was in Arizona at the time with the snowbirds, and she said, so what are you planning to do next? And I said, well, I'm doing a movie of the week. Oh, yeah? What's the name of it? And I said, My Two Loves? And she said, what's it about? And I said, well, it's about a woman whose husband has just died, and she's in the middle of grief, and as she's in the middle of grief, this is what happens. She meets a woman, and she's dating a man, and she says, who plays the man? And I said, Barry Newman. She said, oh, I like him in that Petrocelli thing, Petrolucci. I said, no, it's Petrocelli, Mom. She said, and who plays the woman? And I said, Lynn Redgrave. And she said, oh, I like her in those Weight Watchers commercials. And I started to giggle, and she says, well, I hope you're not going to have one of those orgasms. And I said, Mom. And now my mom at this point was like 80. And I said, I just can't imagine her, kicking back and smoking a cigarette and watching some porn flick on television. So I said, Mom, when was the last time you saw that on television? Right? And she said, are you kidding? Jane Fonda had 3 in Coming Home. And I fell off the bed. I was done. I think I put that in the book, didn't I?
You did.
I did. Oh, God. My mother gave me more material than I had life.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That is so funny. Oh, well.
God, Jane Fonda.
Jane Fonda. And in the book, yeah, you recount the story to her, and she goes, it was only 2, but if you want to say 3 and it makes it sound funnier for your story, then say 3.
You're right. You're absolutely right. No, now, that was exactly what you're saying. That's exactly what our relationship was.
Right.
It was 2. I said 2. But if you want to say 3 and make it funnier, go ahead. Be my guest.
Oh, that is so great. And what else? So now what are you doing these days? You did your play last year, the Marini, is it Strand or?
The Marini Stradivari.
Okay. Oh, Strad. Okay.
Yeah, and we're kind of praying that that's going to go east. I've been in touch with a playwright who I just adore, and...
you were on The Mentalist, right? You did
I just did that.
The Mentalist.
I played an old murderer, and kind of actually a Laguna Beach type lady.
Oh,
she has a boat and all that kind of stuff.
We like rich lady murderers.
Yeah. I don't know.
Are you Black Widow?
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I she's the kind of person who has her portrait above the fireplace.
She lives alone.
Very. So I just did that, which was nice. I've been up for a couple of pilots, one of which I would love to get because I absolutely adore the show. But I don't know. They're still thinking about it.
Are you still doing Wild About Animals?
Oh, yeah. I just finished doing 4 of them, which has been kind of a thrill because it's really steady work, and it's very easy to do, and I love it. The only thing I don't love is that I'm not with the animals. I mean, that's what I would really... It used to be that. I used to do it at the San Diego Zoo or other zoos, and, I could talk to the animals, I could relate.
Right.
and
yeah, you want to be able to pet them and get to know them.
Sure.
Yeah. Is that on Animal Planet or Discovery?
It was on the Animal Planet. Now it's just syndicated. So, again, if you TiVo my name...
Okay.
You can see it. It's basically me doing stand-ups, just talking about the animals, and then they go to the stories. But what I love about the stories is that they're really educational, and they're very they're terrific for kids. We have a couple of episodes now about vets and animals, and how the dogs are bringing the vets back to life, and taking them away from their PTSD and their depression.
Yeah. Well, I used to last year and the year before, I was trapping ferals and domesticating them. So I have a strong love for getting the little animals off the street and fixing them, but then you end up with 5 cats. So now I'm the crazy cat lady.
That's my daughter. Absolutely.
I can't tell
3.
anyone. I know.
Yeah.
I just broadcast that. Now I'm in big trouble. But I love it. And you did do a really cute little bit on Nora, the piano cat, a couple years ago. I loved Nora, the cat that plays the piano.
Yes, right. Well, I think this last time we did something on a woman that knows how to train animals to do things that you would like them to do.
Can they clean the house? Because that's what I want mine to
Wouldn't
do.
that be great? Wouldn't that be great? Even the boxes, the cat boxes that are supposed to clean themselves never do.
Right. I want to remind everybody, too, that they should pick up your book, Breaking the Silence.
Oh, I hope they do. They can get it on Amazon.
I think you have an electronic edition coming out soon, aren't you?
It is on. It's already on.
Good.
It's WOWOI.
WOWOI. Okay. And it's free. That's great. So there's no excuse not to read it.
And there's some great interviews on. They got 5 interviews. They do that when they're selling it.
Sure. Great. Well, see, I was going to ask you then. I think you've answered it because in your book you write that you asked your mother if she felt that she had ever affected anyone. In essence, if she felt that her life had mattered, and she said no.
No.
And if your daughter were to ask you that question, what would you say?
Oh, my God. I mean, my son, my beloved son, said, "Mom, I just know," because we were talking about memorials or something like that, and he said, "I know when we go to your memorial, there'll be people there that I've never even met that just will, fill the room. And it's not something I think about, but because so much of my life has been kept under a mat, a kind of secret. So when I began to come out about this stuff and saw that there were so many people who had been through the same thing, oh my God. I'm thrilled now that there are groups all over the country that really are helping survivors.
Right.
Because it's a very vulnerable lot.
Yeah.
Well,
it must be incredibly fulfilling to know that, you were able to affect people in that very serious way, along with affecting them in an entertaining way, because we need to laugh too. After we confess everything, we need to go and have a good time. So you've really been able to include both of those dimensions. And I was thinking about you and what you've done. And, last year, Jack Nicholson said something to Shirley MacLaine when they were honoring her. And it came to my mind when I was thinking of you. And so I think that I'm going to steal his quote because I believe that this applies to you as well. And the quote is, "You are completely available while still remaining a mystery."
Oh, wow.
And I think that that's what your aura is and your charm and why you can affect people, because that's how you are. And it's really a lovely thing. And it's been such a pleasure being able to speak with you. And
sweetheart, you talk about being available. You're absolutely wonderful. You have the sweetest voice and the sweetest way about you, and I wish we could talk every day because it certainly has made me feel wonderful.
You're so sweet. Well, now you've made my day too. So thank you so much for everything, and I'm definitely going to be signed up on your website so that I don't miss the next thing you do, because I wanna see you do whatever, stage or speak and everyone.
Bless your heart. Yes, I'm redoing my website so that it's a little bit more, I don't know, exciting. I don't know. These things, this modern age,
You got to keep up, right?
Yeah.
And for everybody out there, it's MarietteHartley.com. So just go there and keep up with her. Well, thank you once again.
Thank you, sweetheart, so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And once again, that was the absolutely amazing Mariette Hartley. I will see you all, hopefully, next week. Tune in at 8 p.m. for more Hollywood happening right here on KX93.5, Laguna's only FM station. Bye.